Hi, I'm Jason Gorber for ThatShelf.com, and we're here to look at Genesis's Selling England by the Pound.
Big shelf.
So here is the latest edition of Selling England by the Pound, a record that's been, coming out since for the last 50-something years. Originally released in 1973. Incredible record, has, First to Fifth is the first track, Battle of Epping Forest, Cinema Show, classic, Peter Gabriel era. Genesis, really amazing record. This is part of the Atlantic 75 series released on Analog Productions label in conjunction with Atlantic as part of their 75th anniversary. These are 45 RPM releases. We talked about the face value previously, and this is the first of the Genesis that I've actually managed to snag. Now, a little bit of a heads up on this. I pre-ordered all the Genesises opening day within minutes of the announcement coming. And it was my understanding, not without some, past experience, that would lock me into the first 2,000 being numbered. Because I'm in Canada, I wait for the shipping. I wait for a couple of them to actually show up. So there's a large order that I had coming in. And unfortunately, rather than putting away my order, they simply, for one, I guess is a good thing that it didn't sell out and I at least still got my copy. But nonetheless, mine is unnumbered. So actually I had two of these came through and they're unnumbered. The number's usually up here. Despite being one of the first 2,000 that actually ordered it, I wasn't one of the first 2,000 to actually be shipped it, and because of that, I have an unnumbered version. Some other records in the set, in this series I have, and they've been numbered, so I know moving forward, but it is a bit frustrating because the unnumbered versions, of course, are available in Canada in a way that I could save on some shipping, I could save on stuff like that. There's other retailers that I could potentially go to, so I think that there's got to be a better way for Analog Productions to actually deal with this. I'm more than happy to have stuff sort of saved away until such time as I ship. Maybe even there's a small surcharge, but at least I know that I've locked in what's going. Really, the only way they told me that the only way I can do that is to order an entire series. I could actually go and get a numbered series and be guaranteed that. That seems a little bit ridiculous, especially since there's less than half of the Atlantic 75s that I'll actually be picking up. Nonetheless, that's where we're at right now, and I got an unnumbered version. So, that annoyance aside, it's really about the music for me. I'm not going to be reselling this anytime soon, but it is frustrating. I was one of the first ones in. I should have been one of the first to actually get a numbered version, and so buyer beware on that front, certainly. Given the fact that it is Analog Productions alone that is doing the numbered versions, I think that they could have a better process for that. So we'll leave that alone for now. I have two other main versions of this that I've listened to in the past. One is this, which is the 200 gram Quiex Classic Records 33 RPM version. It's a very good sounding version of this record. It has some of the surface noise that is endemic of classic records of this era, but the actual thump, the actual sound of this has been pretty amazing. And I'm going to be directly comparing it. This is the sort of first part of the video, but I'll be directly comparing the classic 33 with the 45 RPM version that has been newly released. The other version that I have, we'll be talking about a bunch of this as the titles come out, is this baby, which is the Super Audio CD version of the 70 to 75 set. Inside you can see we have a bunch of discs, which include, obviously Selling England is one thing to include, but this has a Super Audio CD. This is the European version, which actually came with a Super Audio CD, which is a high-resolution stereo and multi-channel version of this record. So it's kind of a balance about which one I actually tend to listen to. The multi-channel mix on this Genesis, the Genesises are excellent. And so that's something to keep in mind if you're a big fan. This stuff is available, although it is not inexpensive. Let's dig this in and see what it actually looks like inside. We have the QRP and the Atlantic 75 sticker. This looks like RTI packaging with this sort of rip-off top layer. I mean, that's always usually a good sign in terms of pressing. Not that QRP doesn't do their own. Now, it says quality record pressings, but it has that bag thing, which I've often seen with RTI, not always with QRP. I'm assuming this was pressed at QRP, and that they've just gone ahead and gone with this sort of mode of jacketing, or at least outer sleeving for shipping. The actual record itself, ooh, the beautiful crack. We have a proper gateway, very nice tape-on jacket. I believe it is from Stoughton. And if I compare it directly with the Classic, which is here inside my Vinyl Storage Solutions bag, you can see this is relatively floppy. It is, it's a printed-on sleeve. It is not a tip-on sleeve. And if you just compare, I mean, it's going to be very hard to actually compare, but this is a bit yellower, for lack of a better word. A lighter yellow. Yeah, the color balance in this is dark. But this is a lighter yellow. This is a more sort of banana-y yellow. This being the Classic Records version, this being the brand new one from AP. I don't have an original of this one to compare it to, but that's just something to keep in mind. Let's put this away so I don't mess it up too much. And that, again, is the ye old 200 gram version. So, let's crack these open. Inside here, we have advertising material, not surprising, of them showing off the many things that they have, including a big ad for Asia. We've talked about that on this channel. And then we have this, which is kind of cool, the Atlantic Records 75th Anniversary and Introduction. From Happy Anniversary, and there we go, with Craig Kilman, Chad Kasem, and Julie Greenwald all presenting this. This is obviously common to all of them. And inside, in QRP sleeve, so I guess it is QRP as per the sticker, we have the record. This will be replaced with a Vinyl Storage Solution 3 mil, but nonetheless, let's look at what the actual record looks like. I've been having some luck, actually, from them of getting pretty clean records, and this one looks perfectly great. Some dust on it, but no particular ghosting or anything like that on it. It does look pretty decent. And let us crack open the second record. Again, 45 RPM, so you're getting a chance to actually have these recordings spread over a wider range, and that way we're actually going to benefit hypothetically from, well, not hypothetically, hypothetically on this mix, but in actuality 45 RPM has the capacity of having much lower bass because you have more space to actually pull the things out. You have more towards the edge of the record. It gets a little bit complicated. We've talked about it on this channel again before, but basically the sound is much better towards the outside of the record, and if you have 45 RPM to actually allow it to have more room to breathe, for lack of a better word, it does a much better job. But of Epping Forest and After the Ordeal on one side, and the other side here, right, the Cinema Show, plenty. Total running time, 12 minutes, 40 seconds, which allows that plenty of space on side 4 to actually do its thing. So I'm going to take a listen to these and compare it directly to the 200 gram, and then I will come back and let you know, even though it's not numbered, I'll let you know how it actually sounds compared to the original Classic and see how much of an upgrade it truly is. And we'll see you in a sec. Okay, we're back after a bunch of listening. Still annoyed I didn't get the numbers. I know I shouldn't worry about it, but I think every time I'm going to look at this record, I'm going to notice this absence. And it is what it is. First of all, I've listened to a bunch of the 200 grams. I've listened to this in a little bit, actually. But this is a very, very quiet pressing. Not every original of the 200 gram versions was super quiet. There was actually a lot of surface noise on a lot of these releases. But the copy I have of this particular one is actually quite exceptional. It's funny when you actually compare it. It's not like the new versions are lightweight. They're obviously 180 gram or whatever, but the 200 gram really does have. Shockingly, it's 200 gram, it's 20 gram more, but that doesn't sound like very much, but it's like this big, thick platter, which is why they had so much challenge actually pressing it in a nice and clean way. Listening to them back to back, I have to admit that I probably prefer slightly the 33 200 gram to the new one. I don't know, it's incredibly close. Look, I have them both. Totally happy with having them both. But the sound, the mastering, all of that is pretty much identical. I don't know what the nature of the plates are. It's entirely possible that there was 45 RPM version of this that was originally planned, and these are the plates that they've used. The plates have aged a little bit. I don't know how that works. I know nothing other than the fact that if I put in the 33 version, I have a little bit more. It's not just punch, it's there's an articulation of the instrumentation that I'm finding on the original classic record that I'm not finding on the 45, which is actually the opposite of what I expected. I frankly expected the 45 just to open everything up the way that it did, for example, with Asia. There was a pretty substantive difference for me between, let's say, the Cisco and the new version of Asia. That's obviously a completely new remaster. I think this is trying to, make the most out of what the original was on the original tapes. And remember, it's not like these guys had unlimited funds and were recording at the best of studios and stuff like that. This is early 70s UK record where not all of them are completely audiophilic masterpieces. It's the music that's the most important thing. I listened to the opening track over and over and over. It's Dancing with the Moonlit Night. Obviously, it has Singing by the Pound as one of its lyrics that gives the album its pun, its titular pun. But between the two of them, I think they're extremely, extremely close. If you already have this, if you already have the 200 gram, it's only for lunatics like me, complete a stake, that you probably need the 45. It'll be interesting as I dive into the album more about any tracks that particular shine, but just on a same volume, same settings, both the same setup, same cartridge, etc., and going back and forth between the two, I found a little bit more life in this one than I did in the 45 RPM. It is very slight. The timbres are the same. Everything's the same. It's just if you're trying to nitpick, I just found myself being immersed even as I was listening over and over to the 200 gram one. It's not to say this isn't exceptional. It's just it's very interesting to me how close they are. Now that being said, I also threw this guy on. This is the Super Audio CD. And this is radically different. Suddenly everything is different in this. Clearly it's obviously a complete, it's somewhere between a remaster and a remix. Of course the 5.1 is a full remix. So listening to it in full surround sound, where you have all the mellotron and all those elements in the back, and you have things sort of swirling. But more importantly, Peter's vocals directly coming out of center channel. I happen to have a setup that my center blends really nicely in with my mains. You have this very beautiful coherent 5.1 setup, which is beautifully immersive without getting obnoxious when it needs to, but just at the beginning, it just feels that you're being blanketed by the sound. You do with the 2-channel mix, of course, on the record, but just in the 5.1 mix, you're just getting a different experience, as simple as that. And then most interestingly, if you actually play the stereo version, you get all the things that I think people don't really love about most digital presentations, but is probably closer to what's on the tape than not, which is very clear articulation of so many of the different elements. Especially on the 5.1 version, when you actually hear what Phil's doing on his ride cymbal, all the little tinks and stuff like that, you hear the little tremolo strumming of the guitar as the swells of the mellotron come up. There's all these moments that are easily identifiable on this. That's really interesting because you can listen to 5.1. This is sort of an expert tip, as it were, or at least adjacent tip, is that you listen to 5.1, you hear a bit of instrumentation that maybe you hadn't paid attention to, because this mix will actually allow you to grab onto it in a way that maybe you haven't. And then when you go back and listen to stereo, you hear where it's been placed. You hear where the original mixing engineers actually put some of these elements. It's not like these are new elements. They're just new elements showcased in a different way. It's almost like when you listen to an audio commentary and somebody points something out to you about a movie, and then every time you see the movie, you see it that way. That certainly is my way with Citizen Kane. Ever since Ebert talked about the light at the opening shot sort of going in, I cannot see Citizen Kane without hearing his voice, for example. So, is this quiet? Yes. Is it pressed well? Sure. Is there any surface noise? None. It's an extraordinary presentation, and the fact that it's readily available, that you don't have to go to the secondary market and get something that's been at a print for decades is wonderful. The fact that this entire AP75 series has been done with a great deal of care and attention, I'm extremely pleased about. But for me, it was very interesting. I don't know that this one is so much substantially better or worse than this one. I will sort of go back and forth which one I'm playing. 45 RPM is obviously more of a schlep because you have to get up more and more often. But I just love the fact that this, at the least, lives up to this incredibly high standard and allows people to much more easily accessible get this. This may beat it just a little bit. It would have been interesting if there actually was a truly vintage, as it were, this vintage version on 200 gram Quax version. Maybe what I'm hearing actually is the Quax vinyl itself. That maybe I'm hearing a little bit more that you're getting from this vinyl rather than this guy, which is not done on Clarity vinyl, which is not done on the VR900 style vinyl that this guy is. This is obviously pre-VR900, and obviously Analog Productions have gone their entire different way of dealing with their premium vinyl on their one-steps. But still, it is interesting to actually hear the difference. And for me, these two shine and absolutely give me the presentation that was originally released. But do not, if you have a chance, especially with a decent surround setup that actually properly has your surround music speakers in the rear, sort of like a quad setup, this is 100% worth listening to. People just want to hold on to their beloved analog, and I do too. But this truly was, for me, a pretty exceptional mix. I know a lot of people really were pretty negative about a lot of the stuff that happened in these sets, but I really think that just like what we have with vinyl, that people are like, well, what's your setup? If you have a proper setup with all the speakers timbrally being accurate, I think the 5.1 mix, particularly on this early Genesis set, is truly extraordinary. So yeah, that's our look at the AP75 version of Selling England by the Pound, along with some of its siblings. I hope you enjoyed. For thatshelf.com, I'm Jason Gorber. Please subscribe, follow us on social media, go to our website. It would be great for you to support the writing of our many collaborators. We will see you next video. All the best. Take care.